So I'm here with boxing promoter Lebo Mahoko, and we're here to talk about, obviously, you got a big march planned in November. I want to find out from you, firstly, how are you doing?
Mr. Bruce, thank you very much for the invite.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm doing 100% okay. And I also want to say well done to you because you've done a lot for boxing. I remember very well me and you talked in 2017 about your plans for this platform. And I can see that you are a man of your word. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I want to get back to the topic at hand, though, and I appreciate your comments. Obviously, the channel has grown to a point where it can give everyone a platform to kind of voice themselves, and that's why I think that it's important that everyone has a voice. And I want to get your reasoning behind this march. Obviously, you've had your say on social media, but I mean, there are other markets that maybe haven't heard your side yet. And what are your reasons for this march?
You know what, Mr. Bruce? You are aware that boxing is allowed to resume now. According to the BSA memo, boxing must resume, but without spectators. And if boxing is allowed to resume without spectators, then it means that there should be a plan of what should promoters and boxers do to ensure that everybody can be able to see them. Unfortunately, there is no plan in place. We are just told that boxing must resume without any spectators, but BSA did not make any contingency plans to ensure that all the people, particularly the poor, in our informal settlements, in our township areas, who depend largely on SABC, that they can be able to access boxing. And we all know that after the 5 months of hard lockdown, boxers are the hardest hit. We've been running around, finding food parcels and all that for boxers. It cannot be that now, after when we are at level 1, that we take things as if it's normal. It's not. We are in an abnormal situation, and this matter requires our agency. We have to be urgent about it. Otherwise, boxing is going down, and it's dying at a very fast pace. There are tournaments coming up, yes, I know, but it's not enough. The masses of the people, followers of boxing, are left out. Boxing is supported by pensioners. It's supported by the young boys who have lost their hope in life. Who may use boxing as a platform to get the situation that they are into a better situation, into a better career. Now, there is no platform for that to happen. So that is the reason why we are saying we are marching, because the biggest culprit here, according to us, is SABC.
So, I mean, obviously people would like to know, I mean, how effective do you think a march will be? I mean, obviously you've planned it, it's going to happen. How effective and what sort of outcomes are you looking at with regards to this?
Mr. Bruce, the effectiveness of it lies on the people that are going to be participating, all of us. And firstly, we are going to it's going to be a peaceful march. So everyone is going to be dressed in a boxing regalia. If you have a gown, if you have a boxing boots, you walk in that regalia to make sure that you march. Secondly, we have media coverage in the form of television news and all that, because the awareness we are going to make is also going to make sure that SABC board as a whole, they take note of the march. The Minister of Sports take note of our concerns. And we have done that because we have made sure that the media coverage will be there to support and to hear our views. that, you know, boxing is dying and it cannot be business as usual. As other sporting codes are allowed to have television, why not boxing? That is the outcome. We know that is going to be effective. That we can assure you.
One thing I picked up on social media, there was another outlet, SEI, I think TV. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's Site TV or something like that. Was proposed in order for SABC to collaborate with. I noticed that you didn't necessarily agree with what was happening there. Could you elaborate on that?
Look, Mr. Bruce, SEI TV or CTV, I don't know what you call it. It's a private company. You know, we don't know anything about what is it that they are on about in boxing. And let me say, we don't know any relationship or partnership with SABC, because nobody has ever told us that. Also, we are made to be aware that for you to watch that CTV, you have to have data and to be able to access it. Now, if you want to access the majority of the people who cannot even afford a loaf of bread, how will they be able to afford data to watch boxing? We all know that the pay channels, and CTV as it is, as they are talking about, it's not reaching the vulnerable people, the majority of the people who many of them, these boxers that we know, come from those background. Boxers that we know come from poor townships, and they cannot, their parents and their families cannot afford data to go and watch boxing, you know, or they cannot afford a pay channel, you understand, to watch boxing. So SABC, as a public broadcaster, it is its mandate, as we are TV license holders, to hold it to account. If we do not hold it to account, then we are failing as citizens to ensure that we exercise our democratic right. Because SABC, whether they have money or they don't have money, we need to hear that from them. We just hear in the corridor somewhere somebody telling us, no, SABC don't have money. If they don't have money, surely then there should be no content at all on SABC. Why sacrifice boxing? If you don't have money, you can't sacrifice one sport that the poorest of the poor support, and then other sporting codes are allowed to carry on as if nothing has gone wrong, but you cry that you don't have money. We are simply against that notion that because of the money that boxing is a blackout. In 2017, we were made to travel from our provinces. We took flights, we booked hotels. We were invited by SABC to come and give us their grand plan on boxing. We had the whole day there, having left our businesses and everything, to go and hear of this grand plan of boxing. And what we were told was that, yes, SABC is having plans to advertise, tenders for promoters to apply, for boxing to happen, and for radio to broadcast the boxing. That was in 2017. After 2017, we never got any feedback. And it's not, somebody was asking me, but why did you not go back to SABC to ask them what happened since 2017? Communication is two-way. If we were made to go to SABC Auckland Park Studios, surely we also deserve feedback. And this matter is urgent now because we have just come out of the lockdown. By the way, we also wrote a letter to the GM of SABC Sport, because we wanted to understand what are their plans with regard to boxing. Because if they don't have any plans, then it means then that it means they are saying that in their plans, whether this year or next year, that there's no boxing. So they must tell us that there are no plans for boxing. As for SEI TV, I don't know much about what they are doing. I don't know the deal between them and SABC. But as far as we are concerned, where we are standing, we don't have a middleman called CTV. We want SABC to carry the mandate that they have promised to the nation as a public broadcaster.
Well, let's go from that point. So basically, what would be the expectations of SABC in the situation? Would it be a weekly slot for boxing, a monthly slot for boxing? Like, what sort of expectation is then placed upon them? Like, obviously, they have, as we mentioned earlier, they have budgets and so forth. So what would be realistic?
What we want is they will obviously tell us from the plan that they gave us in 2017, what happened to the plan with regard to how, because they said that boxing they will have a weekly magazine. They will look into changing the time slot, because the current time slot is crazy, to say the least.
It's a bit of a rough
if you have to wait for everything else until 10:30 on Friday to go and watch small content of boxing, it's not doing justice to boxing. Actually, we think it's really an insult to boxing. So our plan is that they should commit to the weekly show, which is maybe an earlier hour, where they will be able to preview upcoming tournaments and all that. Also, when they have tournaments, they should not show them live late in the evening. They should be, the most nicest slots that we used to have. It was just after soccer, around 5:30 on Sunday afternoon, when everybody is coming back from church. They have had their lunch. They have just watched soccer. Now they watch boxing. So that is what we basically want. How they are going to do it, or how often, that is them that will tell us how they are going to do it. If they can do it weekly, it's fine. But something must start somewhere. We cannot just have a status quo of boxing being completely blacked out on TV and on radio.
I suppose a burning question, and obviously going to your personal promotion, is, are you looking at putting on a show this year? Is that a possibility?
I have 2 shows lined up, Mr. Bruce. One was supposed to be now end of October, and one supposed to be in December. And then the issues of the sponsorship have severely been affected by the fact that there's no spectators, because the sponsors that had agreed to sponsor me, they sponsor me on the basis that they get something in return, and that is there will be viewership of the tournament on a TV, or there will be spectators. So if there are no spectators, then the sponsors starting to pull out, to say, it's more like a sparring session. So those are hanging in the balance, but it's not those. My tournaments are not the reasons why I'm aggrieved. I'm aggrieved because during the lockdown, I've seen the suffering of boxers. I've seen the suffering, and it's heartbreaking, and it cannot be left undone or unattended. So that is the bottom line. I'm not looking for glory. I'm not looking for anything. I want to say that if we are good citizens of this country, we must do something to help our fellow citizens. Boxers, they deserve their place in South African sports, to be known, to get endorsements, and to be recognized as champions when they walk into the mall. Like right now, if I've got a champion, Nkululeko Mhlongo. If people don't even know him, I battle to to get him sponsorships because people don't know who Kululeko Mhlongo is. So it's boxers like that and many others. It's not just one. Many others, Mr. Bruce, which really it's a sad story to see in our country right now. It's not enough that we will have boxing tournaments, 2 boxing tournaments here, 2 boxing tournaments there. The majority of South Africans love boxing. There is much more or many more boxers that are not active, in their sport, and they are expected to pay their licenses every year. And many of them depend on the money from the purses that they get. So that is our motive.
Okay, so just for the audience that's listening, of course, and people back home, when is the march? Just to reiterate, what's the date of the march? What's the route of the march? Just all that information.
Okay, Mr. Bruce, we have just gotten the application to a JMPD. I think we will move from Campus Square to the SABC Radio Park, and then we are going to do it there in front of the Radio Park until we submit our memorandum. And we have been assured by media and news channels that they will support us on that. But it's on the 4th of November next month. It's around, we're going to start around 10 o'clock when the traffic is not that heavy, because we don't want to compete with early morning traffic.
All right. Well, thanks for obviously coming on and speaking your piece. Obviously, a very important cause, as you mentioned, in terms of reach, in terms of getting boxing back to where it's supposed to be again. And we thank you. And, all the best with this march.
Mr. Bruce, thank you. It's really, honestly, people like yourself that we also do this march for, because you've dedicated a lot of your time in boxing to ensure that you bring awareness in boxing. So at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of all of us, even those that are against the march. If something good come out of our march, it will benefit the boxing fraternity. The more publicity we give boxing, the better for the boxing to actually be recognized that it is still alive and kicking out and punching up there.